Hey everybody, this is your 6.2 Math Excel video. So this one is mainly just about graphing and finding X-intercepts, Y-intercepts, minimums, and maximums. So it's probably the shortest lesson out of everything. It's just one day for both the notes and the Math Excel video. So the first one says graph the function f of x equal the square root of x minus 5. So if you're doing this by hand, like when you are not allowed a calculator on part of the SAT test, you would want to start a table with x equal 5 because you know 5 minus 5 is 0, and that would be the smallest one. So then you'd say 5, 0. You could also figure out that if you use 9 minus 5 is 4, and then you can do the square root of that to get 2. And also you can use 6 minus 5 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. So those are three ordered pairs you can use in order to graph it. Of course, you can also use your calculator table like this. Graph square root x minus 5, enter, and then just press Control T for your table, and you see all the errors until 5, 0, 6, 1. Then you got a decimal, another decimal, and 2. By the way, later on you will need to recognize the 1.4 is the square root of 2, and 1.73 is the square root of 3. So 1.414 is approximately square root of 2. 1.732 is approximately square root of 3. Those are things you're definitely going to need to know for when you do pre-cal and other classes. And you could work that out by hand too. Giving the exact number instead of the decimal. So if we want to change our table settings to be independent to ask, then it blanks it out, and then you could type these in any random order. Like you could put 5, enter, 9, enter, 6, enter, and get the same numbers that I got when I did it by hand. And that way you don't have any extra values. But you might just want to look at the regular table and look for ones that are not with decimals. Also, just remember basics like if it's the square root of x minus 5, the minus underneath there means right. If it were a plus, it would mean left. So again, that's when it's underneath the square root sign. Okay. Number 2 is graphing the square root function, and it's multiple choice. So this one we have the square root of x plus 4 and then minus 3, which means left 4 and down 3. So then you just pick the right graph. You also need to do your domain. So that would have to be greater than or equal to negative 4 in this case, because you want to use the number underneath the square root symbol. So the square root symbol has a 4, so then you'd want negative 4. Because again, like we've been saying, you cannot have negatives under your square root symbol. And then for your range, it's always above or below. Here it's going to be above negative 3. The reason is because, when you graph it, left 4 and down 3, and then it would go this direction. And so it's basically this way for your range. Y greater than or equal to negative 3. And then your domain is this direction. From negative 4 to the right. So remember, your domain goes this way, left and right. Your range goes up and down. In this case, we started at this low value and went up. So that's why it's y greater than or equal to -3. Okay, so I know this is mostly a review, but I thought that was pretty good to talk about. Then the next one, you have graph 2 square root of x, so that's a vertical stretch of 2, and it's just a multiple choice graph, pretty basic. The next one says match the function with its domain and range. So you're given this function or something like it, and then you got to pick the correct domain and range. So if you have your square root of x plus 9, then your domain had to be x greater than or equal to that number. And then with your range, use this number and don't change the sign. So again, on this one, the domain, you change your sign, and this one, you preserve or keep your sign. So basically, we had a plus 9, so we had to change to -9, and then keep this one -9. Okay. Our next one says graph the function and give the x and y-intercepts. So remember that the x-intercept is where it's x comma 0, and then the y-intercept is where it's 0 comma y. Just look for it or substitute it into your equation. Pretty easy stuff you've done before. Same thing for this one. You graph it, but this time it's multiple choice. Now the one thing that is a little interesting on this one is if you have something like square root of x plus 9 minus 1, you would think without this part your x-intercept would be -9. But because it has this -1 there, your x-intercept is not -9, it'd be -8. Because your graph basically goes like this. And this is where -9, 0 is, and this, -9, -1 is, and this one is where -8, 0 is. So just graph it on your calculator if you need to, or plot points. On the next one, you just want to graph it and give your x and y-intercept again. The next one says graph over a specified interval. And for this one, they also want you to find the minimum and the maximum. So what they mean by specified interval is, in this case, 2 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 7, and yours would have different numbers. Now, if your equation is like mine, it's going to go this direction, and so this would be the low end, which is the minimum, and this is the high end, which is the maximum. So my function was the positive square root of x plus 3. So they're going to want exact numbers for the minimum and maximum. So what you do is you just think the left side is low, and that's 2. And so you do 2 plus 3 is 5. So square root of 5 is your minimum. And then you do 7 plus 3 is 10. So square root of 10 is your maximum. So you'd have to do something like that for yours. You don't want a decimal. On the next one, actually the next two are just like that, so then just work those out yourself. Let me know if you have any questions.